true to what you said on paper.
Wow, how important and relevant is that? Be true to what you said on paper, right? You got the papers in the safe, so be true to what you said on paper, right?
That's right.
You listen to At the Round Table with me. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, in studio, my brother from another, the doctor. Dr. Bradley is in the house.
I'm here, brother.
This is not a rebroadcast. This is not a Memorex, as he said. Are we live? This is live in studio this morning.
Yes,
good to see you back, brother. Always
better to be seen than viewed.
Listen, I always feel good when I look to my right, and I know it's like being in a cruiser. You know that backup is there. When you look and you see that, man, what a beautiful sight. So again, I want to thank our sponsor, the Money Store, for all your mortgage needs. Get branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Also want to thank Cruz Construction for their continued support of this broadcast, as well as the MAMLEO leadership, Dr. Jeffrey Lopes and the MAMLEO family. Like I said, without them, there is no us, and without that, also Boston Praise Radio. And speaking of which, Boston Praise Radio and TV will be hosting their annual monthly Praise is What We Do telethon tomorrow, Sunday, March 22nd, 2026, from 4 to 6 p.m. Tomorrow, like I said, you can tune in live at WBPG-LP 102.9, as well as on the website bostonpraiseradio.tv. Again, that's the Boston Praise telethon tomorrow, Sunday, March 22nd, 2026, 4 to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Like I said, if you can call in now, you can make a donation here. Pastor House, what is that cash app for folks who are listening and they want to get ahead of things?
$ capital BPRTV. $ capital BPRTV.
And if you didn't get that, give us a call here at 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685, and Pastor Hobb will be more than happy to process that for you. Again, we want to welcome back Dr. Kevin, Reverend Dr. I don't know why, Reverend Dr. If I read it off here, then I get it right. Reverend Dr. Kevin Peterson. And he's going to be having a launch party. Like I said, if you, we'll be posting this on there, so you'll be able to scan the QR code and find out. The date has not been set yet, but this is just letting folks get ready for it. So again, he's back in this studio. He's been gracious enough with his time this morning to give us a little bit of time talking about the reparations, and we're going to pivot in there a little bit because the folks have been wanted to talk about, and I think it's important also that Kevin get your perspective on this recent shooting here in the city of Boston involving Boston police officer, which historically has never happened in my time. I know that a police officer was arrested and charged with manslaughter in that case. So, but before we pivot a little bit there, I know Jamal is still on the line. He had put out a question for you. And Jamal, just a little recap. I know you were talking about that, historically or whatever, that the churches have been where people have gone, and you kind of have some disagreement with that, is that different organizations probably should have been included back then, and even more so today, in what reparations look like. And your opinion is that it shouldn't be monetary, it should be in other areas. If I'm just trying to paraphrase what you were saying, if that's kind of an overview of it. Jamal, did we lose you? No.
But
go ahead.
I just went away now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I don't want people to be confused by what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So the clergy was then and is now a small segment of black society.
Mm-hmm.
So, as the historical note was brought up, when General Sherman, right, asked these clergy, right, that might not have been representative of the larger black population, many of whom might have still been practicing their own African traditions, so on and so forth. So, at least for me, in my decades in the reparations movement, most of my learning has come from actual black nationalist, Pan-African movements. It hasn't come from the church. And oftentimes what I've seen in this, reparations or other instances, whether it's violence, what ends up happening is that oftentimes the powers that be look to the clergy as if the clergy is, this representative of the black community, and I don't think that the numbers would match up.
Well, I
and
think
the only other thing, only other thing I want to clear up
Mm-hmm.
is also too, when I said about the thing, of course I support Boston Praise Radio, but when I'm talking about individual checks versus infrastructure,
Right.
what I'm saying is that reparations would go into buckets like black media, of which Boston Praise Radio
Okay.
could be a beneficiary of.
Yeah.
But it's not like a direct thing. Like
Right.
these, education, healthcare, black media, whatever the buckets are that reparations goes to repair and address infrastructurally. But I disagree with the concept of like just this individual handouts of checks.
No, I think that's a fair analysis of it. And Kevin, we'll get your perspective.
It's a fair analysis to a certain extent, but we can't deny the fact that labor was stolen. Labor was stolen. White people made money off of black people. That needs to be repaid. I mean, I don't know if you can be any more explicit than that. If you steal someone's money, you get it back. And the Bible says that you give the money back plus more than what you stole in order to repair that person. So we have to keep the issue of monetary remuneration in the equation of reparation, a more broader, comprehensive reparation plan. Of course, when we talked about the metaphorical sort of, I don't say metaphor, but the symbolic expression of $15 billion as an initial payout, that's real. That's not really symbolic, but it's a real number. We're talking about payouts. We're talking about a portion of money for infrastructure repair, in terms of the buildup of our hospitals, our schools, and then we're talking about the buildup in terms of our businesses. We're talking about home ownership, support for that. So we're talking about a more comprehensive package. And just to go, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but to go to the point around black nationalism and versus the church, George Garrison Frazier, who was the lead among those pastors in Savannah, was a black Baptist nationalist preacher. So he believed in in fact, he said, we don't believe, he said this to Sherman at the time, we don't believe that we have any place within the white community in this country. So give us 40 acres in the mule so we can develop ourselves as local communities and our own black community. Yeah. Garrison was a black nationalist preacher.
Right.
So there's no separation. I don't want to contradict Brother Jamal, but the historical record does not speak to what you're talking about.
But I think also, and I want to grab this other caller and just call it, bear me 1 second. I think, though, put in historical perspective to why the churches were so heavily, because back then that's where we went. That's the only
right.
that was the way we gathered, right? Was the church was the leader. And I can understand, though, why today people don't see it the same, because it's not supported the same. It's not looked at the same. People have more issues with the church and some of the things that were kept quiet, with exploitation and things of that nature. So it doesn't have the same luster in a sense that it did.
And I'm only as a minister speaking out of my tradition in terms of its connection to Garrison, for example. I believe that any secular inclusion around the reparations effort can come out of the black community. Right. So you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be spiritual. You just have to be justice loving.
Right.
Did you? I personally feel that both things can be true at one time.
Yes.
Because I think Jamal has a very valid point, but I also think Reverend Peterson has a very valid point.
This is why the discussion is so fruitful.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly. I think it can be true. I think it's important to make sure that our infrastructure is built in such a way so when we do move, we move in unison, and we move with the future in mind and the future generations in mind.
Right.
On the other side of it, I do think there's links where you can actually link right back from from today to ancestors of slavery. Those people need to be compensated. So I think you can do both things at one time. That's
right, because and I'm going to grab this call because I like when the way Jamal rephrased, he said is that supporting black media, right? Not just this station, but you're right. And I'm all supportive of that. Like, the banner, other outlets, right? So then that actually built, because we have a desert pretty much here in the city of Boston, that is germane to what is affecting us, other than this radio station, to be able to have these conversations, which we should be able to have on a daily basis, not just Saturday morning here. But Carl, thank you for your patience. Good morning welcome to the round table. Carl, are you there?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. And
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
And
Good morning.
can we just have your name, if you don't mind?
Reverend Peterson. I hope you can hear me clearly, Pastor.
We can, if you just speak up a little bit, because you have a very...
Pastor Nicole Allen.
Okay.
And I am associate pastor at Grace Church of All Nations, and I'm also a business owner in the community.
Okay.
In the Dorchester, Mass area. And the question I wanted to ask as I was listening in on the conversation this morning, I wanted to know clearly, why are you focusing on the white churches in the Boston community for reparations, number one? And I wanted to know, and focusing in these white churches, are they even responding in a way that even supports the black community? What is the purpose of targeting or focusing for the recompense, for the repaying of our ancestors of slavery in Massachusetts? Why is it just a focus on these white churches? And are they even connected?
Yeah.
Or are they
Absolutely.
willing to even support the black community?
All right. We'll let him take
that I
that.
wanted to ask this morning.
Yeah. And full disclosure, Pastor Nicole, I go to the same church.
Okay.
I know her. She's a good friend. We're focused on the white church because white supremacy saturates our it started there. The white supremacy saturates our national culture. So every institution is shot through with white supremacy, where there's been anti-blackness and the exploitation of black people in every form, shape that we can imagine, and that doesn't exclude the white church. I can reverse this a little bit and talk about the lack of engagement by the black church around reparations. I've gone to so many pastors throughout the city and asked them to support reparations, and they've turned the other way, and that's another project that we need to jump on. But in terms of the white churches, it needs to be clear that they are not innocent in this nation. This nation, I hate to put it this bluntly, our democracy was born with birth defects. Our nation was born with our democracy was born with birth defects, and the defect was slavery. And I'm sorry if that phrase is politically incorrect, but we were born a democracy with birth defects.
And we're seeing that. They're seeing that now.
And we're still suffering.
I mean, and to that point about the,
we gotta address the sins of the church by omission in terms of the black church, but commission by the white church in terms of their
and not to minimize it, but just to simplify, right? About the past reparations. If you have an outstanding bill, right, they turn it over to the debt collector, and they will chase you down until they collect it, no matter how old it is, right? So if you have a debt that has not been serviced, hasn't been paid, they want to get paid. These same people, they want to get paid. If you owe a tax bill with the city, they're going to put a lien on it. They're going to collect interest on it, and they're going to hound you. And if you sell the property or whatever, they're going to get paid.
But brother, let me tell you something. I'm sitting back here and I'm listening to what the sister just asked.
Yes.
I don't know if you know. You said you know her.
Yes, Pastor Nicole.
Okay, what the pastor just asked, and then your response to it, and Larry's comment. And I'm saying to myself, just the hypocrisy alone will be enough to actually disturb my soul as a man of Christ. The hypocrisy of the fact that you are worshiping a God. And that God said, man is built in my image, and then you take man and you enslaved him, who's in the image of the God that you're building. Right. Because Jesus was black, by the way. All right, so I don't want to, this is another conversation.
No, it's all tied in.
But my point here is that the hypocrisy has no boundaries here. You know what I mean? So you can't begin to set your soul straight until you deal with this issue that your ancestors left you. And the way you deal with it is through this process, recognizing it and making moves to correct it.
Right.
I'm just saying the hypocrisy is out of
I
out of
always
bounds.
say this analogy because it's coming up in a few weeks is the Boston Marathon, right? When we start the race fair with them in Hopkinton, you notice how all the time the brothers and sisters are coming in first place, right? But if we had to, if they have a head start or they do the Rosie Ruiz and take the train, they're going to ride before we do, right? So it's all about a fair race. This race was not started fairly. It was not started equally. So we're not even beginning to catch up from the economic damage. I mean, look at right now what we're seeing in the city of Boston, right? With the housing situation, it really revealed how many of our folks were renters and not owners. So they're not having a say in the property being sold and they're being displaced, right? The gentrification that is taking place here in the city of Boston. And even on the new builds, they're being priced out. They can't compete when the average price for a home in the city of Boston is over $1 million, right? How are you gonna stay here? If you don't even have a job, or you have a job, or even if you were a city worker, teacher, or something, and we all know last hired, first fired. And usually the last hired are our folks. So I'm hearing from a lot of our educators that look like us are being impacted, that are losing their jobs in their profession, right? So we've got a lot to continue. We want to definitely have you back. But I want to pivot a little bit maybe because I want to kind of ties in and talk about this. Some of the source says a Boston police officer has been charged with manslaughter as authorities say he shot and killed a suspected carjacker in Roxbury last week, after allegedly telling the man, "Bro, I'm going to effing shoot you." Nicholas O'Malley, 33, is charged in connection with the death of Stevenson King, 39, of Dorchester. He was arrested Thursday and pleaded not guilty in Boston Municipal Court in Roxbury Division, keeping his gaze to the floor as prosecutors accuse him of unjustified use of deadly force. What we have here is an unlawful killing of another, Suffolk County District Attorney Kevin Hayden told reporters after the hearing. The evidence, as revealed to us through the investigation, is clear, and so we're left with no decision other than to charge manslaughter in this matter. And it goes on. But Larry Calderon, president of the Boston Police Patrolmen Association, warned against Monday morning quarterbacking. No officer ever wants to take a life, ever wants to discharge their firearm, Calderon told reporters, flanked by dozens of uniformed officers. But we carry that piece of equipment to keep you and your family safe, and we do a very good job. Leave out the expletives. So it goes on. But Dr. Bradley, this is you and I in our wheelhouse, and Kevin, I know you've been involved in a lot of these situations as well. One, first of all, I don't agree with when an officer gets involved that we march down to the courthouse and support blindly when we don't have all the facts before us, right? I think it sends us kind of intimidation to the public and in some ways to the criminal justice system of how we want an outcome to come when we don't have everything in front of us. And also, I've had this conversation with others. Larry Calderon, the president of the Boston Police Patrolmen Association, also serves as a commissioner on the post of Police Oversight Standing and Training, which I'm a former commissioner. And I feel like there's a conflict there with him as the head of the organization and serving in that position because he has to represent this body. And if I were looking at this and I had a matter that involved the police, which they all do, I would feel he would be conflicted in his decision making. He couldn't be unbiased because just of his title and his advocacy here, not having all the facts presented before
Larry,
him. Yes.
You can't serve two masters.
Right, that's what Cox said. Exactly. So I want to get your opinion first, Dr. Bradley, on this whole thing, because it's been, people saying this has not happened before. Well, clearly the DA's office must have something because they did a super indictment, which is very rare that you see happen in without a grand jury.
Well, my head is looking at, first of all, this is unusual. That's my first hit. My first hit is the police department works in conjunction with the DA. Mm-hmm. So DAs are very reluctant to go after police officers so quickly unless there's clear and obvious evidence that something was wrong. So my first hit is, this is what happens when you use the body camera correctly. That's the first thing. So, the citizens should feel somewhat comfortable, because we all know that officers can a report and look a certain way. But that report, in this case, from my understanding, was not consistent with the body camera. So
Right.
that's my first hit. My second hit is I do not know, and nor do we, exactly how that officer received the 911 call.
Mm-hmm.
As a former 911 commander, I always told my dispatchers and supervisors, and I also, as a designer of the 911 system in Boston, I put in mobile computers because the officer need to see as much as possible the pure information that came into the 911 center, because that's the information he's armed with.
Right.
So we don't know exactly what that officer was armed with.
Right.
When you carjack a car, usually you're armed.
Right.
And so you have to factor that piece in too. But the fact that they came in immediately within a few days and charged this officer speaks volumes to the fact that the body camera showed something that was entirely different than what was reported.
And also to your point, Doc, because you served in leadership, and the lines are blowing up now on this, and I want to get Kevin and Jamal's perspective as well, is that the policy of the Boston Police Department, first of all, is to not shoot at moving vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. One, it could ricochet, but also if you hit the target and they go out of control, you could cause more harm. But also the policy of discharging, it says even because carjacking is a felony, which is a high-level crime, because back when we first came on, stealing a car was a felony, and you could shoot a fleeing felon. They changed the policy several years ago, and they put language in there, and it reads as such that you have to know for an actual certainty. And as soon as you see that word, because that's a very high bar, you have to know for an actual certainty that the delay in capture of that individual will cause death or harm to someone else.
That comes from the United States Tennessee versus Ghana case,
Right.
where the Supreme Court said you can shoot a fleeing felon under these situations.
Right.
But in this particular hit, this individual, from what I'm seeing, was not fleeing. He was just trying to get away. He was maneuvering the car
But
to
Dr.
get out of
Bradley,
the box.
even if he was fleeing, that's what they're saying is that if you get him an hour later,
got you.
that's why,
you.
and like that's what folks when they put that in there, that's a very high bar. And if you go, that's what I'm saying is that they set you up.
I got you.
Let me
Go ahead, Jamal, and we'll grab something.
And Hobbs too. I am still hearing that other feed in my in the ear on the thing.
All right.
But in any event, thank you.
Good.
In any event, remember y'all, this happened in Boston with the young Cape Verdean sister Evelyn Barrow Cepeda, who was shot in the back seat of a vehicle with two other people, in driving and passenger thing. She's in the back seat. They may have been known to police or what have you, but I guess they ran a red light. The cops ran them, whatever. They try to skeet off, and the police shoot, and they shoot through the back window. And, of course, they don't hit either one, of the guys, and it ends up hitting the young 20-year-old Cape Verdean young mother of two. And that's when, at the time, that they implemented, at least in policy, because it's around the same time that Boston police also implemented the no lying thing.
Untruthfulness.
Yeah. And so around that same time, they did this whole thing with no shooting in a moving vehicle. Now, not so fun fact is that since that time, the Boston police that same thing has happened on multiple occasions. The case of Mark McMullen, who was the guy who was, attempted to stop on Blue Hill Avenue, and they chased him all the way out there to Rockland or whatever it was, right? And in many of these cases, like carjacking, and Dr. Bradley, and once again, I'm glad you're back. We missed you, bro.
Thank you, bro.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Hey, who loves you, baby?
He's gonna send you some Raleigh pass.
Two Cirocs, huh?
Yeah.
But so to Dr. Bradley's point, when you hear over the radio as an officer, certain crimes are, car accident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shots
Monday.
fired. Yeah.
You hear carjacking. You hear shots fired.
Right.
There's a heightened sense of already, and you're hitting them lights, and your adrenaline's already pumping before you even get there.
Yeah.
Then whatever plays out on the scene, and also too, Hollywood. We think carjacking. We think in L.A. and Jerry curls.
Right.
right? Because carjacking is really not such a prominent crime up here in Boston.
No.
It's not, but it's also, Jamal, because I want to get Kevin because we got the lines are lit up here. But it's also one where, like I said, going back to what I'm saying is everyone is aware because they signed for this policy that, as bad as that sounds, if we didn't get him that in that moment and he drove off, and sometimes our ego gets in the way, right? Because like in the adrenaline, as you alluded to, that we have the information about this individual. Is it worth the life and the risk that we take at that moment, you know, because other things are.
But did the officer have that information? Bob?
Right.
See, that's the hit. I mean, when Calderon gets up and say, this guy has this and he has this, that is irrelevant for that particular situation.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
irrelevant.
Attacking his character. That is
you can't justify the shooting by assassinating the character.
Well, that's why
of the
judges
victim.
don't look at your record before they hear the case,
Exactly.
right? So, Kevin, I want to get you to grab your straw.
Just briefly, and from just a ministerial perspective, just give me 30 seconds. This case will play out the way it plays out, and we call for justice. I want to applaud what I'm hearing this morning, just in terms of the expertise, how you guys are forensically sort of addressing this issue in terms of the law, in terms of procedure, in terms of police policy, and all that sort of beautiful.
Well,
One of the great reasons why we have this station. I want to applaud DA also for courage. In the face of what could be confusing, what could be racially galvanizing, polarizing, and applaud him for responding in real time based on the information that he has, D.A. Hayden. I want to applaud also, because I've heard this from behind the scenes, our new Counselor Culpepper and our Counselor Worrell,
who were asking for the body camera footage,
who put themselves out there. I don't know if they've seen the body camera information, but they put themselves out there on behalf of the community. So I want to applaud that also. And the case, we'll push for justice, and it will. But beautiful expressions of the capacity of the black community, just in terms of you guys here in the studio, and the bravery of our elected officials. So most of the times we criticize them and condemn them, but we praise them, we applaud them for coming into the public.
I tell people the only thing the officer is entitled to the same as they want, the presumption of innocence, right? But everything else should fall in the same way it does for anyone else who is in the system. So that's why I said there's no preferential treatment that should be given here, and that's why I don't agree with hundreds of us marching to the court and standing in solid. If you want to do that at the station when he comes or whatever, but I don't think that's the right. Exactly, the police officer. I don't think that is the venue for that. But the calls are lit, the lines are lit up. I want to grab this. Jamal, stand by for a second. Good morning, caller. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning. It's Rose Call again.
Yeah.
And just wanted to reiterate that the fact that when it is an intimidation factor when you see hundreds of police officers in uniform in that courtroom for the hearing in support.
It's intimidating to the public.
Yeah. So again, you should have your date in court like everyone else. And it shouldn't be like, well, we're going to try to sway this outcome of the situation right from the get-go, whether or not we have the facts or not. So no, again, let the facts play out. Let the truth come out, and then however it gets decided in court, but they should not be undue influence because he's a police officer. He's just another good citizen, and now him doing his job, did he do his job correctly, yes or no?
Right, and that's why I think it's important that the conversation we're having here, the people, we're not all in lockstep with this. And this is not making any representation on whether the officer was justified, and I don't have enough facts to do that. But and neither does the other side that is making these accusations. It doesn't help the public elude any confidence in what's taking.
See, like one of the things that the union and the police department got to be cognizant here when they go analyze a situation like this is that you have good officers out there trying to do the job the right way. And then when you have a situation where an officer steps in the wrong side of the law and do the wrong thing, if you support that officer regardless, you also damage the possibility of good community police relations.
You are right on target, brother. And this is what I said. I'm glad you're back in this. Well, let's say the video is released after this trial, and it shows the opposite of what these officers and everyone was out there without any support of it, evidence of it. How does that to the public build up any faith in that the police officers are not just because it's this blue wall that basically they put up out there for him to walk through?
That's one good hit, and the other good hit is that, and I'm mentioning this as I write my book, is that we need to be cognizant of the fact that we have a history in America where police was used to reinstitutionalize slavery, to recreate the plantation, which is the criminal justice system. Okay, and so when in the black community, the police officers, families are still having conversations with their children about how to deal with police officers.
Right.
So you have to understand that when you have a situation like this, it's more than what meets the eye.
Right.
It's also the relationships of officers who are trying to do the right thing. I'm not saying put this officer out there and harm him for that. I'm saying that you have to be fair on both sides of this equation. That's all I'm saying.
And you can't just jump to his defense.
Exactly.
And without, I don't think because of the role that we take, the public needs to know when we come there, we're not just going to jump to the aid of our brothers and sisters because they're police officers as well.
Let's say the uncomfortable fact. Okay, so a lot of people have, made note of, Larry Calderone's, full-throated defense of the situation. But what if this was Officer Tyrone Johnson instead of, Nick O'Malley?
You would not have seen a full throat, and you would not have seen some of the people who you saw in the audience there, because it would have just been Officer Tyrone's problem, and he needs to deal with it, and we'll let the system play out. That would have been the response. Yep. You were absolutely right. No, and that's what I dealt with at MAMLEO, was always about the fair treatment of when one of our members get into something. Dr. Bradley, you had the same title as me as president of MAMLEO. Is that there's not this rally around the flag moment for us. I want to bring this other caller, Rose Jamal Stem, but I want to thank you, caller, for patiently waiting. Good morning, welcome to the round table.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
You calling about the Dudley Square comment, right?
No.
No. He called to rename Faneuil Hall. Come on, duh.
No, Sadiq is my buddy. He won't do that. He knows.
All right, Sadiq, he's back. Let him have it.
Let me just say that in terms of the Black Community Center, we held a press conference yesterday, and let me just say that we had intended to call for a meeting with the Commissioner Cox about the case. Then the DA, he went and did his piece, but the one thing that didn't happen, and the reason why we did our press conference yesterday and we had an overflow of media there, was the fact that there seemed to be a deliberate attempt to not identify the fact that this brother Stephon King was a black man. That's why the media turned out, because of the fact that we wanted to make sure that folks understood that. We said at the press conference that King was our George Floyd because of the fact that this O'Malley assassinated him. And we cannot understand why the DA is withholding the video in terms of the shooting, because they said it
let me say why. Let me tell you why. Let me just right. So let me just say, and I'm not defending the DA, but I'm just defending the policy. Dr. Bradley I know he's gonna have the same interpretation, because this will most likely go to a jury. If you put that video out there, then you are prejudicing the party of people who are seeing something and will draw a conclusion before they actually are seeing it for the first time. So that's why a lot of times people think it is to protect or hide or evade. That is not the reason. It is to protect it so that you can get a pool of jurors and you ask them, if everyone has seen this video on the media or out there, then it's going to be hard for, and the officer's entitled to a fair trial.
Okay, let me just say this. In terms of yourselves now on the air, how many of y'all knew that this brother Stevenson King was a black man?
I didn't know. I assumed just based on the name.
I didn't know.
The same thing. That was my interpretation. I says they're withholding his race because they know. That's why the media turned out in droves yesterday, because we said we want to make it very clear to the public that this was a black man that was assassinated by a white cop.
Well, I think
an ordinary situation.
Not only
that's the point that we're saying, is that they were trying to cover this whole thing up.
Right. I don't. So
It was a
Siddiqui,
black man.
let me just say this. I'm not going to preference it the same way with the SAGs. Like I said, there's a presumption of innocence, and I'm going to always give that, not just because of police officer, anyone. But what I do agree with you on the assassination is of his character of this individual by putting his record out there in that way. Right. You're trying to, in some ways, insinuate that he was deserving or less than having justice afforded him, because that's not how it's supposed to work. If he had prior issues, they should be dealt with in the court, not in the street, not in the court of public opinion.
You cannot justify the shooting by assassinating the character of the victim. I mean, that I have a problem with that as a professional law enforcement officer. I have a problem with that, and I have a problem with Larry Calderon going on out in the public saying he had all these issues. That was irrelevant to the incident.
Right, and I appreciate
irrelevant.
Right, what Kevin said, because we do a disservice to the profession if we're just sitting here in lockstep saying, we probably should, we know that's not the proper way to do this, and because when it happens, and Jamal's point, if it wasn't an O'Malley and it had been an Ellison, I would not have garnered that support. Right, we saw when unjustly former Deputy Superintendent Eddie Crispin was removed from his position. Right, for wanting this, and he serves in an honorable role as a commissioner on the post. He replaced me in that spot, as well as a current lawsuit with current Deputy Superintendent Marcus Eddings, right, for oversight, and his role was to make sure that officers were behaving properly on details and overtime, right. So we're stripping away people who want oversight, and then where was the support for these officers?
Well, in addition to that, let's flip the script. If it was a black officer shooting a white person, would you get the white person being a personality or reputation being assassinated to justify the black officer's shooting?
No,
we would get it's under investigation.
It's under investigation, and this individual has some type of mental issues. That would be the approach. So you have to do this correct. You have to be fair on both sides.
But there's always a little bit more restraint when a white person, even when they're being violent, right? Yeah. Look at the Capitol, right? It was only until that woman was about to come through that window that they realized, okay, this is gonna be. But if we'd have came through on the steps acting that way, there would have been a lot more casualties. Kevin, want to get your take?
No, only that I think this is a case, an incident that we should follow
absolutely
closely and
not prejudge
and not prejudge, and. I'm not sure if I understand the issue around character assassination. I'm not sure if we should say that the person was assassinated before we take in all the facts.
That's why I said the character assassination I agree with, but assassination I can't. I don't have enough facts to support that. Absolutely.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to understand that. I mean, he walked up to the car and said, "I'm gonna effing shoot you, bro."
Well, see,
that's not an assassination.
Siddiqui,
and then they put 3 bullets in him.
Listen,
I hear a black coffin shot a white person.
Siddiqui,
he would not have gone
Siddiqui. Listen. I understand what. No. I understand.
Go with that.
And that's you're entitled to that. That's what I'm saying. For me, I'm not comfortable, even what I've read, and it's in quotes attributing it to him. I have not seen that. I have not heard that come out in a forum where the evidence is supporting everything back and forth, because it's just snips and pieces. Now, it may at the end that may be the conclusion, right? That's what people conclude that happened, and we have to live with that. But I'm saying, for me, that's why it's always an allege that these things, even when we catch somebody and they got the gun and we just saw him, it's always an allegation. That's why the media doesn't call it that. They allege, even when the facts are most likely, you can come to a conclusion that that's what happened.
And just one point to that, I think that it's appropriate to say this was a police killing. That's clear.
Yes.
The phrase, and I say this respectfully, Siddiqui, assassination has a certain context.
Where premeditation.
A premeditation or political or racial context in this instance. And I think we need to be careful around that, because we don't want to poison the community.
That's why the video isn't out there.
In some ways. So respectfully, Siddiqui, I just suggest that we be cautious until we get all the facts in.
Right.
And it seems to me that there was wrongdoing.
Clearly,
seems to be right.
I think if people were seeing
taking of a life, I think
the fact that the DA's office, like I said, didn't go to a grand jury to get they did a super.
You call it a
indictment.
super indictment?
Yeah, exactly. That rarely happens. And usually when you
have to understand the dynamics associated with in the relationship between the DA and an officer.
Right.
We do their investigations.
Right.
We do all the running down of witnesses. So we work very closely with the DA. It's very unusual for a DA to move so quickly on a police officer unless
seems
they're
to be
glaring evidence.
the evidence is overwhelming. So Jamal, I want to pivot to you. I want to hear what you say there, but also I think because this ties in to what we've been talking about with the OPAT, right, and not having a separate accountability, not just in this instance, but of Boston Police, which it was supposed to be designed for, but it had been watered down, and it's been in the public media quite some time. We discussed it here recently on numerous occasions. I've sat down with the director, Evandro Cavallo, about this, and he's trying to make some improvements there. But again, with the city itself it's symbolic. And Jamal, can you speak to that? Because see, this is why an agency like this would be important to also be and to be independent, so that people can feel comfortable with their findings and not just that the commissioner gets still to sign off on whether he agrees with it. Jamal,
well, let me start with D.A. Hayden.
Yeah.
Right. D.A. Hayden, who I like, and whose father was the great historian Robert Hayden, right? Mm-hmm. Wrote that book. But I like him, and a lot of people gave him a lot of grief. I guess based on his persona or whatever it is, people don't like certain things. But I always thought that he was a pretty straight-laced guy, straight down the middle, and knowledgeable and honorable, which is the type of things that I tend to like in a DA, right? Mm-hmm. So I got to say that this move, as Kevin said, Peterson said, I really think that this is a thing where we really have to acknowledge, because while a lot of people were saying that, Kevin is on the take and he's, for the man and all this is a very courageous and bold move, as Dr. Bradley is saying. This is, kind of unprecedented.
It's historic. And and also, Jamal, on the heels of what we're seeing at the federal level, right, where the government is just basically going after perceived enemies or whatever, and they're letting out people who have committed crimes against the country and against others, that he's showing his independence. Yes, they have a very close working relationship with law enforcement. The DAs are the people who prosecute, and I think sometimes people don't understand there is a separation. They're not an extension of the police department.
Yeah, but I think that, I'm sorry. Go on, Jamal. Go on.
I was just going to say, and two, the fact that some people have said that this is somehow some sort of scheme because it's an election.
Right, that's what the lawyer for the officer said.
Which, it does not help him. You know what I mean?
Right.
He would lose the majority of his law enforcement base.
Right.
At the whim of, something like the Boston. If they put out a thing and they said, Hayden's no longer our guy,
right,
that's what it is.
Exactly.
And to what I've said before, some of the myth of the black vote, we don't have enough votes concentrated to sustain him.
Still that 15%
that was our guy, and we liked
showed up back in the day.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me when I looked at the elements briefly of the incident is the similarity between that and what happened with Renee Good in Minnesota. Yeah. So that was one hit. And my other hit is that I would like to see what type of a disciplinary actions the officer had prior to this incident, or were there any past disciplinary actions?
What they say his record was without blemish.
Wouldn't that premise prejudice?
No. I'm not talking about for the criminal matter. I'm talking about for the employment, for administrative matters. I'm not saying
they say his record. They said his record was without blemish.
Okay.
And he's been on the BPD for about 5 years now. Prior to this, he also served on Providence Police Department for I think it was like
former family
There's a question, Dr. Bradley. Why would that matter?
Because what typically
honest question.
what typically happens in law enforcement is that management drops the ball, and they allow these people to actually continue to be on and do not hold them accountable because of the union pushback.
Exactly.
And so they don't actually hold them accountable. What I'm arguing is that when an officer reaches a certain criteria, there should be a review of that officer's behavior and suitability.
But
for law
Dr. Bradley,
enforcement.
that ties into the lawsuit that Marcus Eddings, Deputy Eddings, is filed as being a whistleblower on the improper behavior of officers. And instead of them, saying they said, according to the filings, that we can't fire that many people.
Yeah.
Well, we know we have a problem with behavior, but we're not going to address it. We're just gonna cover it.
That in itself is malfeasance on the part of management. So what tends to happen when they do that, they're sending them. It's not only that officer. They're sending the message to other officers. It's okay to do this.
There you go.
See what I'm saying? And then what tends to happen is it tends to
The broken windows.
Rottens the entire police department. But I argue, even when I was on the command staff, I argued that, listen, we should be able to review as leaders, as commanders, officers' behavioral records. And number one, if they exceed a certain amount of complaints, they should be ineligible for promotion.
Right.
And then we should review their suitability for law enforcement.
And they claim they have progressive discipline, but it's only for certain people. It's not uniformly applied. Rose, did you have anything you wanted to say? I know we'll get to anything on there, Hobbs? Any comments on
Just wanted to reiterate, the profound question, there's a couple of things that you guys mentioned that I see could be fundamental flaws in the way that this system is established. How come the DA does not have his own investigative unit?
He does. That's why the state police, they have state police officers that are up there. So the DA's office does have an independent body of investigators. There are Boston officers assigned up there, but they would not probably most likely because, the conflict of interest. The state police would be leading this investigation on behalf of the district attorney's office.
And then, on behalf of the foundation of the police department, again, a lot of people realize that they were slave catchers. A lot of police departments back in the day, before the country was a country, that's how they were formed. The fire department.
No, it was a country at that time. Right. But go on.
Yeah, it was.
But again, it's just if you kind of really look at it, free range slavery. They took off the chains, but again, the indebtedness of debt and stuff, and the way that they control health care. This is the only country where you're going to go broke because of health care. And then, speaking of which, I don't know if you guys know Emmanuel Dumas, the gentleman that died in custody.
Yeah, the Haitian brother.
Gentleman, yes. I went to a conference yesterday, and they brought it up, and there were a lot of facts that I was not aware of. He was in the country legally. Yeah. He got arrested because a police officer perceived that he was abusive to his child, and he just told his child, because he thought the child had called the police on him, and it was a wellness check that they were doing on his 86-year-old mom who got him into this country. He was like, I don't want to come. They could get him into the country, and now they're having to bury him. Actually, they're doing a fundraiser for him next week. Yeah. And there's going to be a memorial service for him at the Boston Teachers Union next Saturday, and a viewing as well.
All right. Well, send us that information so we can get it.
I definitely will. Yeah. But the bottom line is, we are really free-range slaves. The fact that they, the only country where you can go in debt, for going for an emergency room stay, you don't have insurance or whatever.
Absolutely. Kev, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah. Just want to raise a question around related to culture, racial culture. Might this be an issue of implicit bias? White cop having internal prejudices and striking out almost viscerally in terms of killing this person. Might this be an issue of
raised that
racial sensitivity, and then B, just in terms of this is a question, disproportionality in terms of black representation in B2. Had there been a black cop in the middle of that situation.
The other thing to that, let me just say, the other thing is that what is quoted in there is him saying, right? You would say, well, if he was working in West Roxbury, would he say, "I'm gonna F you, bro"? Right? So that is a mindset that that's how you talk to this segment of the population. Would I have addressed
towards that segment?
Right? Would I have addressed someone who didn't look like him as bro? And the answer is most likely it wouldn't. Siddiqui, you want to sneak you in because we're going to short on time. Anything you want to say before we let you go, brother?
Yeah, I'm just saying, hey, this is George Floyd, Boston, and in closing, I believe wasn't O'Malley's dad
Yeah, he was on the job. Yeah, his
Is
family.
that the same one man I remember? Because he was mean-spirited, so I'll close with that.
Okay, Siddiqui.
Drop the mic.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Drop the mic,
Nah.
Siddiqui.
See,
Got it.
appreciate you. And Dr. Bradley, you got away with calling it.
Case closed.
He didn't cut you, but that's all right. Thank you, Siddiqui.
We go a long way back,
Right.
man.
We've got about 5 minutes. You listen to At the Round Table with MAMLEO, 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number here with a few minutes. Jamal, go ahead. Go ahead,
I just
Rhodes.
want to make a point.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The point that you mentioned, that the fact that, okay, the way the glass, or the way it's perceived, like, look at how when we had a epidemic of drugs in our community, it was a criminal issue. But when now it is in the white suburbs, and white people are suffering from it's a health issue. So again, same crime or whatever, but different way of treating that crime.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it comes into play.
So Jamal, what are you hearing out there? I know Siddiqui gave us. What are you hearing out there in the community? Because I someone had sent me a lot of, and at first it was sadly people were prejudging, and there were a lot of posting on social media that he somewhat deserved it because of the carjacking. They were having all the, and sometimes I get people who want to quickly weigh in on things. But what are you hearing out there in the streets now, Jamal, after this incident? After this arrest?
It's the same stuff. It's a mixed bag. There are those who are super, in defense of him, and others who are ready to stretch him up. And there's a lot of people who do know him. So on Facebook and whatnot, I'm seeing a lot of people who grew up around him and this and that, and more information. I mean, I knew he was black, but more information like that may come out. But I want to touch on the other thing that you mentioned about the OPAT. So I think that this is kind of one of those critical moments, because when we were in deliberations and inside of the Boston Police Reform Task Force, this is one of the things that we had really hammered out in terms of incidents like this. Is exactly where OPAT is supposed to be able to step in, interject itself, and blah blah blah. So now, without obviously the release of the body cam footage, which of course now is part of the court thing,
right.
But even Larry Calderoni himself said that in the past, commissioners like Evans had brought people into the upper room, I think he described it as, in BPD headquarters, and would show them the body cam footage.
Right. But I think but the difference is, Jamal, in this case there were charges. In those instances there were no charges.
There were no charges.
It's outstanding. So that's where no one had been charged, so they did it before that happened. So that's that's the big difference there, because this is now before the court for charges.
And the only other time, and Siddiqui's gone, but the only other time, I think you and I talked about this, but where an officer was charged with anything this quickly was the officer who shot up underneath the
Jimmy
car.
Hall, shot the kid under the car, and he was charged with manslaughter. Yep. Listen, we've got to run. Jamal, thank you, sir. As usual, I will see you in the AM. We've got to run. So also want to remind folks, Boston Praise Radio and TV praises what we do telethon Sunday, March 22nd, tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. Tune in. Also, our guest here, Reverend Dr. Kevin Peterson. Like I said, thank you, sir, for coming in.
You.
Any final words from you? Coming. I know you have an event coming up. So,
well, just join us in our upcoming event, April 18th, 1 o'clock at the Boston Public Library. Continuing this issue around reparations through the venue of renaming Faneuil Hall. Upcoming book being released in April, the Book of Reparations, how we move towards a true multiracial democracy, using reparations as a way to address the birth defects of the American democracy, which is slavery and the horrific assault upon Native Americans. So as we celebrate the 250th anniversary of our so-called democracy, we should position ourselves to critically engage it in terms of what it really was. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right. And Dr. Bradley.
Nubian Hall.
Nubian Hall. There you go.
Welcome back, brother.
Be blessed.
Thank you.
Nubian Hall.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. 'Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge. If your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'. You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. 'Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard.